Erin Cloud serves coffee for $8 an hour, her genius hidden beneath a stained apron and the memory of a public failure that destroyed her life. Julian Thorne, a billionaire tech mogul, sits in her section, playing chess for stakes she can't possibly imagine. When she mindlessly whispers a move that saves his game, he doesn't just offer her a tip, he offers her a chance at revenge. What begins as a game of fun becomes a high-stakes battle against the very man who ruined her. But her opponent isn't just a man. He's backed by a machine, and the board is set for war. The smell of stale coffee and industrial bleach was the perfume of Erin Cloud's life. For 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, she navigated the cracked linoleum floors of the Liberty Diner in uptown Manhattan. She was 24, but the exhaustion in her eyes made her look a decade older. Her movements were a study in frantic efficiency. She could carry 6 plates on one arm, remember that the man in booth 4 wanted his fries near burnt, and calculate 3 separate checks in her head simultaneously, all while fielding a complaint from the cook, Sal. "Erin, order up," Sal barked, slamming a plate onto the pass. "Got it, Sal," she called, her voice cheerful, a mask she wore as part of her uniform. Her best friend and fellow waitress, Sarah, leaned against the counter, refilling salt shakers. "You're a machine, Elle. I swear your brain moves faster than the subway." Erin forced a smile, wiping a smudge of ketchup from a plate. "Just means I get to the end of the shift faster." But her mind wasn't a machine. It was a prison. Behind the orders for eggs over easy and more coffee, sweetheart, her brain was screaming. It was a finely tuned instrument designed for grand symphonies, now being used to play chopsticks. 5 years ago, Erin Cloud wasn't a waitress. She was a prodigy. The Cloud Gambit had been the talk of the chess world, a brilliant, hyper-aggressive opening sequence that had propelled her to the finals of the US Intercollegiate Championship. And then, in one catastrophic, humiliating game, she had fallen apart. The memory was always there, lurking just behind her eyes, the hot lights of the stage, the thousands of silent spectators, the smug, cold eyes of her opponent, the click, click, click of the chess clock, sounding like a bomb. She'd lost. It wasn't just a loss, it was a detonation. Her scholarship, her reputation, her future. Gone. That same month, her father's small tech consulting firm had declared bankruptcy under mysterious, hostile circumstances. The twin catastrophes had shattered her family. Her father, a broken man, now managed a hardware store in Albany. Erin, the genius, had fled to the anonymity of the service industry. She actively despised chess. She couldn't even look at the checkered pattern on the diner's floor without feeling a spike of nausea, which made Booth 12 a special kind of torture. Booth 12 was the territory of Julian Thorne. Thorne was a new regular, appearing 3 times a week like clockwork. He was sharp, dressed in bespoke suits that cost more than Erin's annual salary, and radiated an aura of contained power. His eyes, a piercing grey, seemed to see everything. He was flanked by a severe-looking man named Arthur, who carried a briefcase and spoke in hushed tones. And on the table between them, Thorne always had a sleek, roll-up electronic chessboard. Erin dreaded that booth. She made Sarah take it whenever possible. But today, Sarah was swamped. "Erin, booth 12 needs a refill," Sarah muttered, flying past with a tray. Erin's shoulders tightened. She grabbed the coffee pot. "On it." She approached the table. Thorne and Arthur were deep in a game. Thorne, playing as black, was in a difficult position. "If you move the rook, he forks you at C11, Mr. Thorne," Arthur said quietly. "I see the fork, Arthur. I'm looking for the counter," Thorne replied, his voice a low baritone. He tapped his finger against his temple. "There isn't one. It's sloppy. I'm playing sloppy today." Erin's hand was steady as she poured the coffee, but her eyes were glued to the board. The position was complex. Arthur was right about the fork, but he was wrong about the counter. Her brain, against her will, began to calculate. Rook to e8 is defensive, but weak. Knight to d4 is a sacrifice, but what does it buy? Wait. The solution bloomed in her mind, vivid and perfect, a flower of pure logic. It was beautiful. "You're both missing it," she whispered. The words were out before she could stop them. They were meant for herself, but in the quiet lull of the afternoon diner, they landed like a gavel strike. Both men froze. Julian Thorne slowly lifted his gaze from the board, not to her face, but to her name tag. Erin. She turned beet red. Her heart hammered against her ribs. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean. More coffee?" Thorne ignored the pot. His grey eyes locked onto hers. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I saw I'm sorry. What?" he repeated. Not unkindly, but with an authority that allowed no refusal. "Are we missing?" Erin swallowed, her eyes flickering back to the board. She felt like a recovering alcoholic being forced to smell whiskey. It's not a fork if you don't let him take the rook." Arthur scoffed. "The rook is pinned, miss. It's the only—" "Bishop to f5, Erin said, her voice barely audible. "It's not about saving the rook. It's a deflection. He takes the bishop with his pawn, which he has to. It opens the g-file. Your queen swings to g4. His king has nowhere to run. It's a forced mate in 3. The silence in the diner was absolute. Arthur stared at the board, his eyes widening as he traced the moves. He looked at Thorne, his face pale. My God, she's right. Thorne didn't look at the board. He looked only at Erin. She was trembling, the coffee pot shaking in her hand. She looked trapped, like a wild animal caught in a snare. I have to get back to work, she stammered. She slammed the pot on the table, spilling coffee, and fled to the sanctuary of the kitchen, her cheeks burning with shame and a terrifying, familiar thrill. She didn't see Julian Thorne lean back in his booth, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. Arthur, Thorne said, his voice alive with a sudden, predatory energy. Find out everything there is to know about Erin Cloud. Erin spent the rest of her shift hiding in the kitchen, scrubbing imaginary grime from the walk-in freezer. She was mortified. You don't correct customers. You especially don't correct customers like Julian Thorne, who looked like they could buy the entire city block on a whim and bulldoze it for fun. When she finally clocked out, Sarah was waiting for her by the lockers. So, Sarah said, waggling her eyebrows, Mr. Tall, Dark and Deadly in booth 12 left this for you. She handed Erin the bill. It was a standard check for coffee, but tucked into the clip was a tip. A 500 Hundles bill. Erin gasped. I can't accept this. Yeah, you can. And you will, Sarah said. But that's not the weird part. She pointed to the back of the check, where a note was scrawled in black, authoritative ink. Ms. Cloud, I'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. I'd like a game. J.T. Erin's blood ran cold. A game. He was testing her. He was amused by her. The talking waitress. She felt a familiar wave of humiliation. No, Erin said, crumpling the check. Absolutely not. Are you insane? Sarah hissed, snatching it back and smoothing it out. This is 500 and look at him. He's probably a movie producer or something. This is your chance, Elle. It's not a chance. It's a joke, Erin said bitterly. He wants to see the circus freak play. I'm not doing it. That night, Erin didn't sleep. She lay in her tiny, drafty apartment, the sounds of New York traffic a dull roar outside. The note sat on her nightstand, judging her. A game. Her mind, unlocked by the brief encounter, was racing. It was replaying the game, the one that had ended everything. The lights, the cameras, and Marcus Dubois. Marcus, the reigning champion. Golden boy of the American chess scene. He had been her opponent in the final. She had been playing brilliantly. The cloud gambit had him on the ropes. She was 19 years old and about to be crowned. She remembered leaning over the board, calculating her victory. And Marcus, in the silence of the auditorium, had leaned in too, smiling. "Tough week for your family, isn't it?" he'd whispered, his voice silky. "I heard your father's company, Cloud Tech, just got obliterated by Kincaid Industries. Such a shame. He's ruined." It wasn't public knowledge yet. Erin hadn't even known the full extent of it. It was a scalpel, aimed directly at her heart. Her composure didn't just crack, it exploded. She'd looked up, stunned. He was still smiling. She'd missed a simple defensive move, a rookie's error, a blunder. 40 seconds later, he was in her back rank. Checkmate. The press hadn't called it a loss. They'd called it a choke, a spectacular mental collapse. "Cloud's folly," one headline had screamed. She had never touched a chess piece again. Now, this man, Julian Thorne, wanted a game. She went to work the next day, her stomach in knots. 3 p.m. arrived. The diner was in its afternoon lull. The bell above the door chimed. Julian Thorne walked in. He wasn't in his suit. He wore dark jeans and a simple black Henley, but he somehow looked even more imposing. He carried no briefcase, no electronic board. He was alone. He slid into booth 12. Erin, her hands shaking, walked over with a glass of water. "Sir," she started, her voice stiff. I'm working. I can't. You're on your break," he said. It wasn't a question. She looked at her manager, who just gave her a wide-eyed, "What are you waiting for" gesture. Thorne must have arranged it. Thorne reached down and placed a case on the table. He opened it. Inside, nestled in green velvet, was a beautiful, vintage Staunton chess set. The pieces were weighted, carved from ivory and ebony. It was a set that belonged in a museum. "I find the electronic boards impersonal," he said, setting up the pieces with practiced ease. "They lack history, don't you think?" Erin just stared. "Mr. Thorne." "Julian, please." He gestured to the seat opposite him. "Just one game, Ms. Cloud, for fun, to satisfy my curiosity." She looked at the exit. She could just walk out, quit, flee, just like she had 5 years ago. Or she slid into the booth. The leather was cool against her skin. "One game," she said, "and please, don't ever leave a tip like that again." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? We'll discuss my tipping habits later. White or black?" "I don't care." He pushed the white pieces toward her. "Your move." Erin took a shaky breath. She looked at the pieces. They felt alien in her hands. She planned to lose, to play simple defensive moves. A 4 knights game. Simple, boring, get it over with. She played, he played. He was good, very good. Not just rich guy hobby, good. He was a predator. His moves were aggressive, creative. He was forcing her to think. She defended, parried, traded pieces. She tried to keep the game simple, to drain the life from it. But he kept introducing complications. He sacrificed a pawn to gain control of the center. He was pushing her. After 20 minutes, he had her. Her king was exposed, her pieces uncoordinated. He had a simple, winning attack. He didn't take it. Instead, he leaned back. "You're boring me, Erin." Her head snapped up. "What? You're playing like a textbook, like an amateur. You're deliberately making suboptimal moves. You're trying to lose." His grey eyes were sharp. "The person I saw yesterday, The one who saw a mate in 3 that my Grandmaster-level analyst missed? Where is she? Erin felt a hot flush of anger. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? He said, his voice dropping. I know that 5 years ago, Erin Cloud was the most exciting prospect in American chess. I know she invented a gambit that took the world by storm, and I know she vanished after one bad game. He gestured to the board. You're in a cage of your own making, Erin. You're afraid. You've been hiding in this diner, letting your gift rot because one man, Marcus Dubois, got in your head. Her composure shattered. You have no right. I have every right. Talent like yours is a crime to waste. He suddenly, violently, swept the pieces from the board. They clattered onto the velvet lining. Again, he commanded, his voice like steel. No, yes, again. He began setting the pieces back up, his hands moving with lightning speed. This time you play for real. You show me who you are, or you can go back to wiping tables and pretending to be someone you're not for the rest of your life. He finished setting up. He pushed the white pieces back to her. Play, he said. Erin stared at the board. The anger in her chest was so potent it tasted like copper. He thinks I'm afraid. He thinks I'm broken. A cold, sharp clarity cut through the fog of her memory. She wasn't afraid. She was furious. She picked up her king's pawn. She moved it to e4. He responded, pawn to c5, the Sicilian defense. She didn't play a standard response. She picked up her knight, then her bishop. Then she sacrificed a pawn, opening a line for her rook. Thorne's eyes widened. She was playing it. She was playing the Cloud Gambit. The Liberty Diner ceased to exist. The clatter of plates, the chatter of customers, the hiss of the coffee machine, it all dissolved into a muffled hum. There was only the 64-square universe and the man sitting across from her. Erin was no longer a waitress. She was a general. She was an artist. She played with a ferocity that stunned him. The Cloud Gambit was all about tempo and initiative, sacrificing material for an unstoppable attack. It was chess as a blitzkrieg. Thorne, who had been the predator just moments before, was suddenly, desperately, on the defensive. He was a brilliant player, finding the only correct moves to counter her threats. But she wasn't just creating one threat. She was creating 5. She attacks his knight. He moves. She forks his rook and king. He's forced to trade. She brings her queen into the attack with a terrifying tempo. She wasn't just playing moves. She was telling a story of aggression and fire. She saw the entire game, 10 moves deep, branching out like a crystal structure in her mind. Thorne was sweating. He had underestimated her. He hadn't just found a talented amateur. He had found a sleeping giant. He made one tiny fractional mistake, a pawn move that was 99% correct, but not 100%. Erin pounced. Knight to d6. Check. King moves. Queen to f7. Check. King is forced into the corner. Rook to h8. Thorne stared at the board. He looked for an escape. There was none. It was brutal. It was elegant. It was checkmate. In 22 moves. A masterpiece. Silence. Erin was breathing hard, her knuckles white where she gripped the edge of the table. The adrenaline was pounding in her veins, a feeling she had missed like a lost limb. Thorne stared at the position for a long, long time. He didn't look angry. He didn't look humiliated. He looked ecstatic. He slowly leaned back and began to laugh. It was a deep, genuine laugh of pure appreciation. My God, he breathed, looking at her with something akin to awe. The Cloud Gambit. It's even more lethal in person. That was art. Erin's anger deflated, leaving her trembling. I should go. You're not going anywhere, Thorne said, his voice now all business. He began packing the exquisite pieces back into their box. "Sarah can cover your shift. You're done here." "What are you talking about? I'm not quitting my job." "Yes, you are," he said simply. "Wiping tables is over. I'm not a chess enthusiast, Erin. Not really. I'm a problem solver. And I have a problem that I believe only you can solve." He snapped the box shut. "My car is outside. We need to talk." "I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't even know who you are." He paused. "Fair enough. My name is Julian Thorne. I am the founder and CEO of Thorne Dynamics, a quantitative hedge fund that primarily uses predictive AI. He pulled a sleek, black business card from his wallet. "We manage about $80 billion. Does that satisfy your curiosity?" Erin's eyes widened. She knew the name. Thorne Dynamics. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was one of the billionaires, a tech titan. "What? What kind of problem?" Thorne's smile faded. His expression turned to granite. "A high-stakes one. I'm in the process of sponsoring a private tournament, the Harrington Invitational. It's an unconventional event. The prize pool is $5 million. Erin's breath hitched. $5 million. That was never work again money. That was save her father's life money. "You want me to play in it?" she stated. "I do. I need a champion. I need someone who doesn't just play like a machine. I need someone who plays with fire and instinct. I need you." Erin shook her head, the old fears rushing back in. "No, I can't. I don't play publicly. Not anymore. You saw what I just did. That was a fluke. That was genius, Erin. Stop lying to yourself." He leaned in, his voice dropping. "I know why you're afraid. I know what Marcus Dubois did to you." "You don't know anything," she whispered. "I know he cheated." Erin froze. "What? He didn't just get in your head with that comment about your father. That was part one. Part two was that he had help. He was receiving signals. That's why your blunder was so catastrophic. You were in a position where only a perfect, computer-assisted counterattack would have worked. He wasn't a grandmaster. He was a puppet." Erin felt dizzy. How do you know that?" "Because," Thorne said, his eyes turning to chips of ice, "he works for my primary rival, a man named Donovan Kincaid, and Kincaid has sponsored Marcus Dubois' entry into the Harrington Invitational." He stood up, slinging the strap of the chess case over his shoulder. "You asked me not to leave a $500 tip. Fine." He looked down at her, his 6'3" frame casting a shadow over the booth. "Come with me, Erin. Win this tournament. And instead of a tip, I'll give you $5 million. And more importantly, I'll give you Marcus Dubois." The ride in Julian Thorne's car, a black, silent, obscenely expensive electric sedan, felt like a dream. The Liberty Diner, with its scent of burnt coffee, already felt like a different lifetime. They drove to a sleek glass tower in Midtown that bore his name, Thorne Tower. His penthouse apartment was less a home than a strategic command center. One entire wall was a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Central Park. The other walls were lined with books, artifacts, and screens displaying data streams Erin couldn't begin to decipher. "Arthur!" Thorne called as they entered. His severe-looking aide appeared, holding a tablet. "Mr. Thorne." "Ms. Cloud." Arthur nodded to her, his expression now one of undisguised respect. "We've prepared the dossier." "Good. Give it to her." Arthur handed Erin the tablet. The file on the screen was titled, Project Cipher. "I lied," Julian said, pouring 2 glasses of water. "The Harrington Invitational isn't about a $5 million prize. That's just my contribution to the pot. It's about this." He tapped the screen. A new file opened. It was a hostile takeover bid. Thorn Dynamics was attempting to acquire a reclusive but revolutionary AI research firm, Cyberdyne Solutions. Cyberdyne is run by an old eccentric named Alistair Harrington, Thorn explained, pacing. He's a genius but unstable. He's created the world's most ad-cloud quantum AI. It's a key that could unlock, well, everything. Global finance, military applications, medical research. The problem is, another firm wants it too. Kincaid Industries. Erin looked up, her blood chilling. The ones who ruined your father. Yes. Thorn's face was grim. Donovan Kincaid is my greatest rival. He's ruthless, amoral, and he wants that AI. So it's a bidding war? Erin asked, her mind racing. Worse. Harrington, in his infinite strangeness, couldn't decide between our two offers. They were financially identical. So he created a tiebreaker, a deeply personal one. He decreed that the deciding factor, the final proxy vote for control of his company, would be awarded to the winner of his private chess tournament. Erin sank into a leather chair. You're telling me the fate of an AI company worth probably billions rests on a single game of chess? I am, Thorn said. Alistair Harrington believes chess is the ultimate test of strategic intellect. He believes whoever possesses the superior strategist deserves his company. Kincaid's champion, his chosen strategist, is Marcus Dubois. It all clicked. The pieces snapped into place in Erin's mind. Dubois, Erin said, the name tasting like ash. You said he cheated against me. And he's been cheating ever since, Arthur interjected, pulling up a video file. Dubois' tournament record for the last 5 years is perfect. Too perfect. His ELO rating is inhuman. He plays with 99.8% computer-level accuracy. Kincaid isn't just sending a chess player, he's sending a proxy for his own AI. Dubois is a puppet, and Kincaid is the puppet master. But why me? Erin whispered. Why not hire another grandmaster? Because, Thorn said, stopping in front of her, every other grandmaster I've run simulations against loses. They lose because they, too, play like machines. They've trained their whole lives against computer engines. They're predictable. This isn't a game of human versus human. It's a game of human versus machine. And the only way to beat a machine is to do something it can't possibly predict. He pointed to her. What you did in the diner, the cloud gambit, the fire, the creativity, the chaos. No AI can model that. It can't quantify human passion or human rage. You're not just a genius, Erin. You're a statistical impossibility. You're my black swan. You're the only one who can beat him. Erin looked at the dossier. She saw her father's company name, Cloud Tech. She saw the schematic of its downfall, a coordinated attack, hostile short selling, manufactured supply chain disruptions. It was a corporate assassination, and the signature on the final acquisition, Donovan Kincaid. It wasn't just business, Erin said, her voice shaking. He destroyed my father on purpose. Kincaid saw your father as a minor competitor, Thorn said quietly. And he saw you as a rising star. He doesn't just like to win, Erin. He likes to see his opponents break. He sent Dubois into that final with one objective, not just to win the game, but to shatter you psychologically, to eliminate 2 clouds with one move. And he almost succeeded. A single hot tear of rage rolled down Erin's cheek. All these years, she had carried the shame of that loss. She thought she was weak. She thought she had choked. But it wasn't a fair fight. It'd never be a fair fight. They hadn't just beaten her. They had stolen her life. She stood up. The waitress was gone. The prodigy was back. I'm in, she said, her voice low and steady. Good, Julian replied. But I have one condition. She looked him dead in the eye. "The 5 million is yours. I don't care about the money. I don't care about Cyberdyne Solutions. I want Kincaid. I want proof of what he did. I want him to admit what he did to my father." Thorne smiled. It was the first truly cold expression she had seen from him. "Erin, if you win this tournament, you will have single-handedly cost him the single biggest prize of his career. He will be enraged. He will be cornered. And cornered men, they always talk. When is the tournament?" "1 week." Erin's eyes widened. 1 week? Julian, I haven't played seriously in 5 years. I'm rusty. You're a genius, he cut in, and we have a week to wake her up. He gestured to Arthur, who tapped his tablet. The screens on the wall flickered to life, all displaying chess analysis. "Welcome to your new life, Miss Cloud. The training begins now." The next 7 days were the most brutal of Erin's life. Julian Thorne's penthouse became a strategic war room. Her old diner uniform was replaced with athleisure, her diet meticulously managed by a private chef, and her sleep schedule monitored. Thorne, it turned out, wasn't just a strong player. He was a ruthless coach. "Again!" he'd bark at 3 a.m. as they analyzed one of Dubois' games. "You missed the tactical shot. Look at the board, Erin. Don't look at where the pieces are, look at where they can be." They studied Dubois' play. It was, as Arthur had said, perfect. Cold, logical, and inhuman. He always made the top engine choice move. "He's using an AI, Erin confirmed, her eyes scanning lines of code Arthur had pulled from Kincaid's servers. Kincaid isn't just using a commercial engine like Stockfish. He's piping his new Cyberdyne prototype AI right into Dubois' head." "How?" Julian asked. "We don't know," Arthur said. "An earpiece is too obvious. It must be something subtle, something we can't detect." "Then we don't focus on the how," Erin said, a new hardness in her voice. "We focus on the what. This AI, it's a calculator. It's not a creator. It's designed to respond to threats. So, we have to create a threat it can't calculate." But the pressure was immense. On the 4th day, Erin cracked. They were running a simulation. Thorne was playing as Dubois, mimicking the AI's cold, perfect style. Erin found herself in a position eerily similar to her final, catastrophic game. The same pawn structure, the same trapped feeling. "He's ruined," Marcus's voice echoed in her head. The penthouse walls seemed to close in. The 64 squares swam before her eyes. "I can't," she gasped, pushing back from the table. "I can't do this. He's in my head, Julian. After all these years, he's still in my head." She retreated to the window, her breathing shallow. She was having a panic attack. Julian Thorne watched her for a moment. He didn't offer sympathy. He didn't pat her on the back. He walked to a closet and pulled out a coat. "Put this on. We're leaving." "Leaving?" "We have 3 days. The training is over. You're not going to find the answer in this sterile room." 10 minutes later, they weren't in a limo. They were in a yellow cab, heading downtown. They stopped in Greenwich Village, in front of a slightly grimy, unassuming park, Washington Square. It was chilly, and the park's famous southwestern corner was bustling. The chess hustlers were out in full force, slapping down pieces on worn-out vinyl boards, shouting and laughing. "What are we doing here?" Erin asked, pulling the coat tighter. "You're trying to outcalculate a machine," Julian said, gesturing to the scene. "You can't. You're trying to be perfect. But chess, real chess, isn't about perfection. It's about pressure. It's about will. It's about street fighting." He pointed to a famously fast-talking player known as Vortex, who was currently playing 3 games at once. "Those men don't have engines. They have instinct. They have guts. You've forgotten how to be a hustler, Erin. You've forgotten how to fight." He walked her over to Vortex. "My friend here," Julian said, his voice carrying over the din. "Thinks she can play. She'll play you. 5-minute blitz. $20 a game." Vortex laughed. "Sweetheart, I'll take your money, but I won't enjoy it." Erin sat down. The board was dirty. The White Knight was missing an ear. Vortex, hit the clock. "Your move, princess." Erin played, and she lost. In 3 minutes. She was playing too cautiously. "Again," she said. She lost again. Again. She lost a third time, but this time she took him to the last 30 seconds. She was angry, but it was a different kind of anger, not the cold, traumatic rage from her past. This was hot, competitive, fun. "Again," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. This time she played the cloud gambit. Vortex, unprepared for the sheer aggression, fell apart. She checkmated him in 40 moves. The other hustlers went quiet. "Again," he said. She beat him again, and again. She played for 2 hours. She played fast, dirty, and intuitive. She was laughing. The rust wasn't just gone. It had been sand-blasted off. As the sun began to set, she stood up from the table, energized and alive. "I remember now," she said to Julian, her eyes sparkling with a dangerous light. "Remember what? Why I loved this game. It's not math. It's a knife fight." Julian smiled. "Good. Because the Harrington Invitational is tomorrow. And you're not just going to fight. You're going to draw blood." The Harrington Invitational was not held in a stuffy convention center. It was held at Alistair Harrington's private estate in the Hamptons, a sprawling, ultra-modern compound of glass and white marble that jutted out over the Atlantic Ocean. The tournament room was a glass-walled atrium with the stormy ocean as a backdrop. There were only 8 players, invited by Harrington himself. 4 were sponsored by Julian Thorne, and 4 by Donovan Kincaid. Erin walked in, not as a waitress, but as Julian Thorne's chosen champion. She wore a simple, elegant, dark blue dress. She felt poised, calm, and lethal. Then she saw him, across the room, standing beside a tall, reptilian-looking man she instantly knew was Donovan Kincaid, was Marcus Dubois. He looked the same smug, handsome face, the same expensive suit, the same cold, dead eyes. He saw her. His smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. He was confused. He recognized her. "Erin Cloud," he said, just loud enough for her to hear. "What are you doing here? Serving the drinks?" Kincaid looked her up and down with dismissive contempt. "This is Thorne's champion? A waitress?" Erin met Kincaid's gaze, then Marcus's. She didn't say a word. She just smiled. A tiny, cold smile. It was the same smile he had given her 5 years ago. It unnerved him. The tournament began. It was a single elimination bracket. The early rounds were a blur. Erin, filled with the knife fight energy from Washington Square, was a hurricane. She dismantled her first opponent, a German grandmaster, in 30 moves. Her second opponent, a young prodigy from India, she ground down in a brutal 6-hour endgame. She was exhausted but victorious. As she'd predicted, Marcus Dubois was also breezing through his bracket. His games were fast, flawless, and utterly devoid of soul. He played the perfect move every single time. He looked bored. Erin and Julian watched his semi-final match from a monitor. "He's definitely getting signals," Julian muttered. "I know," Erin said. "Look at his left foot. He's tapping it. But it's not a nervous tap. It's a pattern. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. It's binary. A haptic device in his shoe. Arthur confirmed it," Julian said, walking over. "The entire estate is wired for no tech, but Kincaid's team installed the security system. He built a blind spot. We can't prove it without causing a scandal and invalidating the whole tournament." "We don't need to prove it," Erin said. "I just need to beat him." "How can you beat him and the AI, Erin? It's impossible. It will see your every move." "It will see every logical move," Erin corrected. "But the AI Kincaid built. It's like him. It's arrogant. It's designed to win. It's not designed to handle the absurd. It's not designed to handle a player who is willing to lose." Julian looked at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" "It's a computer," Erin said, her eyes fixed on the screen where Marcus was accepting his opponent's surrender. "It calculates risk. It will never, ever allow itself to be put in a truly bad position. It's programmed to seek advantage. I'm not going to play for an advantage." "What are you going to play for?" Erin turned to him, her face a mask of pure, cold focus. "I'm going to play for chaos." The atrium was a bubble of silence, suspended over a raging war. Outside, the Atlantic, whipped into a grey fury by the nor'easter, hammered against the cliffs below. Inside, the only sound was the funereal tick-tock of the tournament clock, a sound that Erin had once associated with her own execution. This was the final match, Erin Cloud versus Marcus Dubois. She sat opposite him, her spine straight, her hands clasped loosely in her lap. She felt a preternatural calm, the kind that comes when all fear has been burned away, leaving only a core of cold, hard purpose. She was no longer the frightened prodigy. She was no longer the exhausted waitress. She was a weapon. Across the gleaming obsidian and marble board, Marcus Dubois lounged in his chair, a picture of arrogant self-assurance. He leaned forward, his voice a silky, condescending whisper meant only for her. "This is truly pathetic, Erin," he murmured, adjusting an expensive cufflink. "You're a ghost, a diner ghost. Did you really think you could play in our world?" He gestured discreetly with his chin toward Donovan Kincaid, who was watching with a bored expression, as if this were a mere formality. "Kincaid is going to own this company. Thorne is going to be ruined. And you'll just be the answer to a trivia question, the girl who choked. Twice." The clock was started. Erin was white. Her hand didn't tremble. She didn't play the cloud gambit. That was her fire, her rage. This moment required something else. It required ice. She moved her pawn to d4, the queen's gambit, a game of strategic depth, of subtle pressure, of building an advantage so slowly your opponent doesn't know they're suffocating until it's too late. Marcus responded instantly. d5, she played c4, he played c6, the Slav defense. With every move, his left foot, hidden beneath the table, tapped a subtle, almost imperceptible rhythm. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. The binary code from the haptic device in his shoe. He wasn't playing her. A machine was. For 2 hours they played a game of crushing, inhuman perfection. Every tactical idea Erin presented, the AI parried. Every positional nuance she explored, the AI neutralized. The game was a sterile, mathematical masterpiece, completely devoid of soul. It was like shadow boxing with a god. The board became locked. Pieces were traded. The position simplified, heading toward a dead, sterile, unwinnable draw. In the corner, Donovan Kincaid checked his watch and stifled a yawn. This was precisely what his AI was designed to do. Against a strong opponent, if an outright win was too risky, it would bleed the game dry. It would guarantee a draw, and in this tournament's complex tie-break rules, Kincaid's team would win on the cumulative score. Julian Thorne stood like a statue, his arms crossed, his face an unreadable mask. But Erin could feel his tension from across the room. He knew, as she knew, that she could not win this way. She could not beat a perfect machine at its own game. Marcus leaned in again, the smug smile plastered on his face. Boring, isn't it? This is what real top-level chess looks like, Erin. Not that street-fighting nonsense you used to play. He lowered his voice. Why don't you just resign? Give up. Go back to your diner. I hear Sal is looking for someone to clean the grease traps. Street fighting. His words, meant as an insult, were a spark. He was right. She wasn't a top-level machine. She was a street fighter. She was the hustler from Washington Square. And you don't beat a hustler by being perfect. You beat them by flipping the table. She looked up from the board. She didn't look at Marcus. She looked at Kincaid, who was smirking at his phone. She looked at Julian, who met her gaze. She gave him the slightest, almost invisible nod. Trust me. It was Erin's turn. The position was hopeless. Her pieces were passive. His were perfectly coordinated. The AI, she knew, was predicting her to move her queen from d3 to c3, a quiet, defensive, correct move that would solidify the draw. She had to do something the machine could not compute. Something it was not programmed to understand. A computer is programmed to value material. A queen is worth 9 points. It is the most valuable piece. To sacrifice it is the ultimate failure of logic, unless it leads to a forced win. Erin had no forced win. She was going to commit logical suicide. Her hand hovered over the board. She heard Julian take a sharp, involuntary breath. She saw Kincaid finally look up, annoyed by the delay. Erin picked up her queen, the most powerful piece, her protector, her primary attacker. She moved it. Not to safety. She moved it to h6, a square where it was completely, totally, and utterly undefended. A square where it could be captured by a lowly pawn. She had just, for no logical reason, thrown her queen away. The room exploded in silence. Alistair Harrington, the eccentric host, literally stood up from his chair, his jaw slack. A German grandmaster in the small audience audibly gasped, "Was ist das? Sie ist verrückt." What is that? She is insane. Donovan Kincaid shot to his feet. What is this? What is she doing? Is this a joke? Across from her, Marcus Dubois froze. His face went chalk white. His brain, his own grandmaster-level brain, was screaming blunder. It's a rookie mistake. It's a total, complete blunder. But the haptic device in his shoe, it was going insane. It wasn't a calm, calculated series of taps. It was a frantic, non-stop, panicked vibration. Bist, bist, bist. The AI, Kincaid's perfect machine, had encountered an unsolvable. It was programmed to calculate threats and advantages. It could not process a 9 sacrifice that had no immediate, forced follow-up. It was an absurdity. It was a paradox. The human is making an illogical move. The human is destroying herself. This does not compute. Recalculate. Recalculate. Error. It's a trick, Marcus hissed, his own skill now fighting the panicked signals from the AI. He was sweating, his eyes darting from the board to Kincaid and back. Or maybe, Erin said, her voice clear and carrying, I'm just a silly waitress who made a mistake. Take it. The AI, in its death throes, finally sent the only logical command it could. The queen is undefended. Take the queen. Marcus's hand, visibly shaking, reached out and captured her queen. You're finished, he stammered, his voice trembling. He had a massive, insurmountable material advantage. He had won. Am I? Erin asked. And then, the signals in Marcus's shoe stopped. Click. The line went dead. The AI, having encountered a human move so paradoxical it couldn't resolve, had crashed. Marcus was alone. He stared at the board, trying to bask in his victory. But a cold dread was creeping up his spine. Why did she look so calm? Erin's queen sacrifice wasn't a blunder. It wasn't even about the queen. It was a diversion. It was a bomb designed to blind the AI. And in the smoking crater, a path had been cleared. A single, critical diagonal, from A1 to H8, that the AI had dismissed as irrelevant, because no human would ever give up a queen to get it. But Erin had. "Now we play," Erin said. She moved her knight from F3 to E5. It was a simple move, but it attacked his F7 pawn. Marcus, his mind racing, his AI lifeline gone, had to defend. He played his knight to D7, a clumsy, human move. Erin then moved her bishop from C1 to A3, the long diagonal, the one she had paid for with her queen. It was now staring like a sniper's rifle at his king's position. Marcus saw the threat too late. He tried to build a pawn shield, but Erin's pieces, which had looked so passive and sleepy, were now a coordinated storm. She was no longer playing for points. She was playing for blood. She moved her rook from F1 to F6, a devastating, shocking move. "You remember my father, Marcus?" Erin asked, her voice quiet, but it cut through the room. Marcus looked up, panicked. "What?" "He was a good man," Erin said. She pushed the rook forward. "He taught me that in business and in life. You never, ever underestimate an opponent." She sacrificed the rook. Check. Marcus, now openly hyperventilating, had to capture it. His pawn structure around his king was shattered. He was completely, totally lost. He just didn't know it yet. Erin moved her bishop. Check. Marcus's king, stripped of its defenders, was forced to move into the corner. The H8 square. The kill box. He looked at Kincaid, his eyes pleading for help. Kincaid's face was a mask of purple rage. Erin picked up her final knight, the one that had been sitting quietly on B1 for most of the game. She had quietly maneuvered it to F7. "This," she said, her voice like steel as she placed the knight down. "This is for him." Checkmate, a smothered mate, one of the most beautiful and humiliating in all of chess, delivered by a player who had given up her queen and a rook. It wasn't a game. It was an execution. Silence. Utter, complete silence, save for the howling wind. Marcus Dubois stared at the board, his world collapsing. Then, a dry, choked sob escaped his lips. He put his head in his hands and wept. A farce! Donovan Kincaid's roar shattered the quiet. He strode toward the table, his face contorted. "This is a fix, a complete and utter fix. That nobody. She couldn't beat him. He's a champion." "He was a champion," Julian Thorne said, stepping forward. "Today he was just a puppet, and you cut his strings." "You cheated," Kincaid yelled, jabbing a finger at Thorne. "You bribed her. You must have." Erin slowly stood up. She walked, not to Julian, but directly to Kincaid, stopping just inches from him. She was no longer a waitress, but a queen, and her eyes were burning. "He is a champion, isn't he?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You must have spent a fortune on him, on that lovely AI you've been developing, on the haptic device you had installed in his shoe." Kincaid's blood drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about." "You've been doing it for years, haven't you?" Erin continued, her voice rising, drawing the attention of Harrington and the few spectators. "Just like you did 5 years ago. My father's company, Cloud Tech. You couldn't just beat him in the market. You had to destroy him. A coordinated attack, hostile short selling. But that wasn't enough, was it?" She was now close enough to see the sweat on his upper lip. "You saw I was in the finals. You saw a chance to break 2 clouds at once. You gave Marcus the information about my father's ruin, didn't you? You told him to get in my head. You told him to break me." Kincaid, seeing his billion-dollar acquisition, his reputation, his entire empire turning to ash in the hands of a 24-year-old girl, finally snapped. The mask of civility was gone, revealing the monster beneath. "Break you!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "You were already broken. That boy is an idiot. I gave him a perfect, flawless machine, and he let a girl on a lucky streak beat him. And you," he jabbed his finger at her, "you should have stayed a waitress. Your father was an insect, a minor annoyance in my world. He was nothing. And you were just collateral damage." Click. The sound was tiny, but in the ensuing silence, it was as loud as a gunshot. Arthur, Julian Thorne's aide, was standing just behind Kincaid. He lowered his smartphone. The red record light was shining. He'd recorded the entire blistering confession. Donovan Kincaid looked at the phone. He looked at Thorne's cold, triumphant smile. He looked at Erin's face, not of anger, but of victory. He realized, in that one horrifying moment, that he hadn't been playing a chess match. He had been walking into a trap. And Erin Cloud, she hadn't just been the bait. She was the one who set it. "Security," Julian Thorne said calmly into his watch. "Mr. Kincaid and Mr. Dubois will be leaving now. Please escort them out. I believe the SEC will be very interested in Mr. Arthur's recording." As Kincaid was led away, pale and sputtering, Erin turned away from the scene. She walked to the great glass wall and watched the storm. The rain was lashing against the window, but inside, she finally felt at peace. Julian came and stood beside her. He didn't speak for a long time. "Alistair Harrington is ecstatic," Julian said finally. He called it the greatest game of chess he'd ever seen. He called it art. "The Cyberdyne contract is being signed over to me as we speak." He turned to her, his usual calculating expression replaced with one of genuine awe. "Erin Cloud," he said, "you are, without a doubt, the most terrifying and brilliant strategist I have ever met. I didn't just want a champion. I wanted a partner. Thorne Dynamics has a new R&D division for predictive modeling. I want you to run it. Name your price. It's yours." It was the offer of a lifetime, a new start, a new future, everything she'd ever dreamed of and more. Erin looked at his outstretched hand. Then she looked back out at the ocean, where the first hint of sun was beginning to break through the dark clouds. The storm was passing. "I'm not a corporate strategist, Julian," she said softly. "And I'm not a waitress." He lowered his hand, confused. "What are you, then?" She turned to face him, and for the first time in 5 years, she smiled. It was not a smile of anger, or shame, or bitterness. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated freedom. "I'm a chess player," she said. "And I think I'm ready for a new game." Erin proved that true genius isn't just about perfect calculation. It's about the human spirit, strategic sacrifice, and the courage to face the ghosts of the past. She didn't just win a game. She reclaimed her life and delivered justice. The waitress became a queen, not just on the board, but of her own destiny. What did you think of Erin's ultimate gambit? Do you believe brilliance can be found in the most unexpected places? Let me know your favorite twist in the comments below. Your engagement helps this channel so much. If you enjoyed this story of revenge and redemption, please do me a huge favor and like this video, share it with a friend who loves drama, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this. Don't forget to click that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for listening.